So the procedure for him late is Steve Shalom is going to respond for 5 minutes, and Cindy will respond.
I thought I have two and she has five.
Oh, two, right, okay.
You can go 5 and
Okay,
two.
yeah, two, and then Cindy's going to respond. And just briefly, okay, Steve Shalom is, I think, one of the clearest thinkers about important issues that I know or read. I recommend anything by him. He's a teacher at William Paterson College, a professor of politics, and has done a lot of things which is shared today about kind of alternate forms of governance under participatory economy. He's a co-author of Socialist Visions, and in the latest issue of Z Magazine has a really, really good article on par polity, he's calling it. Okay, so response by Cindy, and then we'll switch it around.
Okay, well, I only need 2 minutes because I thought I agreed with about 18 minutes of what you said. And in fact, even the two comments I want to make may not be disagreements at all, but just things that I think need further elaboration, and you just maybe couldn't fit it all in. So the first one is the issue of, you talked about some kind of non-statist constitutions that would spell out rules. And I think that's real important because one of the important dilemmas of democratic theory and political thought in general is the question of how do we balance giving power to the people, but at the same time protecting certain kinds of individual rights. And the way we often do that is we entrench certain rights in constitutions, and we say, yes, we have majority rule, as you said, often consensus, but in some points it's going to be majority rule, but can that majority do anything it wants? Are there limits we want to impose on the majority? But of course the danger there is if you put a limit on the majority, does that mean that the minority is ruling? How do you balance that? Constitutions are supposed to be a way of saying things like, okay, one thing majorities can't do, even if they're 99%, is they can't take away your right to free speech. And that would be for two reasons. One, because sort of our own personal autonomy requires us to have those rights, but also because a political system where the majority could close down the right to free speech would mean that the minority could never organize and talk about their objections to the majority's position, so the majority would stay in power forever. I mean, a simpler case is one thing a majority should never be able to do is cancel all elections from then on, because they're now in power, right? So it seems to me there are a bunch of things you'd want to entrench in a constitution beyond just sort of the basic rules of the game, but limits on the majority in particular. Second, when you talked about the example of democratic formations coming into existence in the course of strikes and certain kinds of crisis situations, and you said, well, those might not be the full development of the political model because there's not maybe enough difference of opinion and so on. But the other issue is those are crises. And what people can do in short-term crises is not necessarily the kind of political system you could have that will last for the long term. So, in crises, I stay up all night. And, and we had meetings all night. And, I remember once years ago being at a meeting and saying, okay, it's 3 a.m. and in those days the rooms were all smoke-filled, and I said, maybe we can, stop the meeting and go on and wait till tomorrow, and somebody else at the meeting said, the Viet Cong don't sleep, and so, it's a crisis, we got to keep going, but you can't do that every night, and so while it's very inspiring to see people take over their factories and set up kinds of councils and things, what they do for the short term might not in fact be the real model of the institutions we want for the long term.